Somewhere in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a farmhouse has never been treated by an exterminator. Not once. The family that lives there has been farming that land for over 100 years, and they've dealt with every pest problem you can imagine, including roaches, using nothing but what they could make, grow, or buy at a general store for pocket change. Meanwhile, the average American homeowner spends somewhere between $100 and $400 every time they call a pest control company, and most of them call more than once. So why does it seem like the people who have the least access to modern solutions tend to have the least pest problems? The answer is a $2 ingredient sitting in most grocery stores right now. The Amish have been using it for generations, and once you understand why it works, you'll realize the pest control industry has very little incentive to tell you about it. Here's how it all went down. To understand the Amish approach to pest control, you first have to understand their relationship with the home itself. Amish households operate more like small farms than modern residences. Food is stored in bulk, preserved by hand, and kept in a way that's accessible year-round. That means grains, dried goods, vegetables, and meats are present in the home in quantities that would make a roach feel like it had won the lottery. But roach infestations in traditional Amish homes are rare. Not non-existent, but rare. And the reason comes down to a philosophy that most of us have completely abandoned in the modern era. Treat the problem at the source, not at the symptom. A pest control technician will spray a perimeter. They'll treat baseboards. They'll put out bait stations. What they're almost never doing is addressing the environmental conditions that drew the roaches in the first place. Because if they fixed those conditions, you wouldn't need to call them back. The Amish fix the conditions. And then they use the $2 trick on whatever's left. The ingredient is diatomaceous earth. If you've never heard of it, it's a naturally occurring, soft, sedimentary rock made from the fossilized remains of tiny aquatic organisms called diatoms. You can buy a large bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth at most garden centres, feed stores, or online for under $2 a pound. The same pest control companies that charge you $200 a visit use it in their treatments, often without telling you what's actually in the product. Here's why it works. Roaches, like all insects, have an exoskeleton. That exoskeleton is coated in a waxy layer that helps them retain moisture. Diatomaceous earth, when applied in a thin layer, acts like microscopic shards of glass to insects. It penetrates that waxy layer, causes them to dehydrate, and they die. Not in hours, overnight. The reason this works so well for roaches specifically is behavioural. Roaches are creatures of habit. They follow the same routes night after night, along baseboards, under appliances, around plumbing. They're running the same track every single time. If you apply diatomaceous earth along those routes, every roach in the house will walk through it before the night is over. By morning, you find them. But the Amish approach doesn't stop at just applying the powder and calling it a day. That's where most people who try this get it half right and wonder why it didn't work as well as they expected. The application method matters more than most guides admit. First, the powder needs to be applied dry. If it gets wet, even from humidity, it clumps and loses its effectiveness. AMISH households using this technique apply it in areas that stay dry, behind stove units, inside cabinet corners, under the refrigerator, along the gap where the baseboard meets the floor. Not in open spaces, not on countertops, and critically, not in a thick pile. A thin, barely visible dusting is what you want, because a thick pile is something a roach will walk around, not through. Second, and this is the part that almost nobody talks about, you have to remove competing attractants before you apply it. If you dust the baseboards but leave food residue under the stove, dirty dishes in the sink, or standing moisture anywhere in the kitchen, you've set up a competition between where the roaches want to go and where you've laid your trap. The diatomaceous earth loses that competition every time. This is where the AMISH framing becomes more than just a novelty. Their homes, out of necessity, are kept in a way that removes nearly all pest attractants by default. Food is sealed. Surfaces are cleaned. Water sources are managed. They're not dealing with a heavy infestation to begin with, so when they deploy diatomaceous earth, they're deploying it in an environment that's already hostile to roaches. It works in an evening because there aren't 300 roaches and a breeding colony behind the walls. There are 20 that found their way in through a gap under the door. If you're dealing with a serious infestation, the $2 trick is still part of the solution, but you need to do the environmental work first, or you're playing whack-a-mole. We dig into stories and methods like this every week. If that sounds like your kind of channel, subscribe. So what does a full overnight treatment actually look like? Here's the practical version. You start the night before. Clean the kitchen thoroughly. Pull the stove out from the wall and clean behind it. Wipe down the inside of the cabinet under the sink. Remove clutter from corners. If there's a leaking pipe or a dripping faucet anywhere in the house, that's your #1 priority before anything else, because roaches need moisture more than food. A single slow drip under a sink can sustain a colony indefinitely. Then, once everything is dry and clean, you apply the diatomaceous earth. A thin, consistent line along baseboards in the kitchen and bathrooms, behind and under the stove, under the refrigerator, inside cabinet corners, especially lower cabinets. If you have a gap around your plumbing under the sink, dust inside that gap. The goal is to cover every route they're likely to travel without making the powder so visible or thick that they reroute around it. Go to bed. Leave the lights off. Roaches are nocturnal and they move when the house is dark and quiet. You want them moving. By morning, you'll find dead or dying roaches along the treated areas. Some will make it further before they go down, but the dehydration process is working in all of them that made contact. Now, here's the honest part of this that a lot of one weird trick videos skip over. One night of treatment handles the adults that were active that night. It does not eliminate eggs. Roach egg cases, called uthiki, can contain anywhere from 16 to 50 eggs, depending on the species, and they're glued to surfaces in protected areas where the powder isn't reaching them. When those eggs hatch, you'll have a second wave. The traditional approach, and what Amish households would do as a matter of routine, is to maintain the diatomaceous earth application for 2 to 3 weeks, refreshing it if it gets wet or displaced. The second application catches the next generation before they can reproduce, and by week 3, the colony is gone. That's the full method. Not one night and done, but $1 application every week for 3 weeks, against the $300 exterminator visit you'd otherwise be booking. There's also a food-grade distinction worth understanding. Diatomaceous earth comes in 2 grades, food grade and filter grade. Filter grade is used in pool filtration systems and contains a much higher concentration of crystalline silica, which is harmful to breathe. Food-grade diatomaceous earth is the one you want for household pest control. It's safe around pets and children once it settles. You still don't want to be inhaling clouds of it during application, so wear a dust mask when you're laying it down. But once it's applied and sitting flat, it poses no health risk to anyone in the house. This is probably why the Amish, who often use it around livestock and even as a supplement in animal feed, have been comfortable with it for so long. It's been around and in use for well over a century. It's not a folk remedy in the unverified sense. The mechanism is well understood. The results are documented. It's just not a product that generates recurring revenue for a service company. So it never makes it into the mainstream pest control conversation. The broader lesson here, and this comes up over and over when you look at traditional farming households and how they manage problems we've outsourced to professionals, is that most of what we pay for is convenience and the comfort of having someone else deal with it. The underlying solution is often cheap, accessible, and straightforward. You just have to know what to look for. The Amish figured out a long time ago that a clean environment plus a $2 natural abrasive handles the same problem that costs hundreds of dollars a year for the average suburban homeowner. It's not magic. It's just knowing how roaches move and what kills them. Anyway, that's the full method. There's another one on screen if you're not done yet.